only Savior. He is my rock and my Redeemer. Yahweh, the mighty Elohim. Oh, now sing to Yah right now. The mighty Elohim. Oh, now sing to Yah right now. The mighty Elohim. 7 times a day to thy name I pray. For thy name Yahweh, there is safety and healing. In thy power, Yah, thy people willing. When your justice reigns, no more killing. Oh, now we giving praises to Yahweh. Sing to Yah right now. We giving praises to Yahweh. He is the mighty Elohim. Oh, now we giving praises to Yahweh. Sing to Yah right now. We giving praises to Yahweh. Give thanks and praise to the mighty Yah, the mighty Elohim. Give thanks and praise to the King of Kings, the mighty Elohim. Give thanks and praise to the Most High Yah, the mighty Elohim. Give thanks and praise to the only King, the mighty Elohim. Oh, now sing to Yah right now. The mighty Elohim. Oh, now sing to Yah right now. The mighty Elohim. We giving praises to Yahweh. 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 The mighty Elohim.
Shalom, 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 shalom. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous, Yah is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. Welcome to another beautiful broadcast of Nothing But the Truth. I am Moreh Isha Yisrael from the House of Yisrael of Cincinnati at 2330 Kemper Lane, here to bring you nothing but the truth. Live from the House of Israel of Cincinnati in our HOY Cincy Radio studio. I'll be teaching from the radio studio today, so you won't see a video, but we are live. We are live, and this is Nothing But the Truth tonight. And it is Moreh Isha Yisrael from the House of Israel. And we'd like to say shalom to everyone that is tuned in our listening and viewing audience. For we know the only reason you have tuned in to our program is because of your great love and your great fear toward the mighty Yah. And who is this Yah? Yahweh is the creator of the heaven, earth, and sea, and all that therein is. Yahweh is the only judge, the only lawgiver, the only king, the only redeemer, the only savior of the world, of Israel and the world. And Yahweh is the one that has raised us up to bring you his words of truth And that's what we will do. And tonight we will discuss the book of Numbers called Bemidbar. But we're going to do a recap of the book of Numbers that's called Bemidbar here on HOI Cincy. I'm sorry, here at Nothing But the Truth. We're going to do a recap of the book of Numbers so far. We've dealt with 6 different topics in Bemidbar, which means in the wilderness, and we're going to recap these 6 different things so everybody can make sure they're caught up, and we highlight the necessary points that need to be highlighted as we continue to teach you the book of the law from the study guide for the law of Moses. Now, this study guide for the law of Moses is compiled and put together by our elder and senior Morey Ishaya Yisrael. He put together this study guide for the law of Moses so that it would help us remember the law of Moses, as stated in the book of Malachi. As you go to the book of Malachi, I'd like to read the 4th chapter. And the 4th verse reads, "Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded to him in Horeb, for all Yisrael, with the statutes and judgments." So this lets you know we're supposed to remember this law that Yah gave to Moses. And he gave it to us in Horeb. And we're supposed to remember this law. But how do you remember the law of Moses? At least you have a method, an order to it. There must be an order to remembering this law. We can't go off of our own understanding. For instance, the heathens have taught us that there are 613 laws in the Torah. Whether that be right or wrong, what are they? List them all. Let us see them. Don't just tell us there's 613 laws in the Torah, because there's other cultures that say they have 613 laws in their codex. Does that mean we have 613 laws? But what Yahweh has allowed us to see is that he has separated the bounds of this book of the law according to the number of the children of Israel. And what is the number of the children of Israel? It's 12. So in the book of Genesis, there's 12 generations. In the book of Exodus, there's 12 sets of names. In the book of Leviticus, there's 12 holy laws in which we discuss. And now we're in the book of Numbers, which is called Bemidbar, which means in the wilderness. And there are 12 topics to discuss in the book of Bemidbar. But the book of Bemidbar, or the book of Numbers, is unique in its book, because the book of Numbers, which is called Bemidbar, which means quite literally in the wilderness. So this book is a book to represent what happened in the wilderness. But the wilderness is what you will read about from the book of Exodus all the way to the book of Numbers. You will read about everything that happened in the wilderness. Of course, in Deuteronomy, it's really one event. But the book of Numbers, Leviticus, and Exodus happen in the wilderness. And in the book of Numbers, you'll even read about all the journeys in which the children of Israel took in the wilderness. So the book of Numbers is a representation of what went on in the wilderness. And only in the book of Numbers, which means Bemidbar, which means in the wilderness, will you read of every journey locale in this book. So this book has the writings of all the journeys the children of Israel took. That you'll read about these various places throughout the Torah. Yet in Bemidbar, the wilderness, in this book, you'll see these journeys. I want you to go to this chapter of Bemidbar, the book of Numbers. It's the 33rd chapter. And in the first verse, it reads, "These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys by the command of Yahweh. And these are their journeys according to their goings out." So this chapter details the journeys in the wilderness that Moses was commanded to write down according to the word of Yah. These are the journeys. As a matter of fact, look in the book, I believe it's the 9th chapter of Numbers. Let's see here. In the 9th chapter, of Numbers, we'll start reading in the 15th verse, and it reads, "And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. And at evening there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until the morning. So it was always the cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed, and in the place where the cloud stayed, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. At the commandment of Yahweh, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of Yahweh they pitched. As long as the cloud stayed upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents. And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of Yahweh and journeyed not. And so it was, when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of Yahweh, they stayed in their tents. And according to the commandment of Yahweh, they journeyed. As so it was, when the cloud stayed from evening unto the morning, and that the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed, whether it was by day or by night. That the cloud was taken up, they journeyed, or whether it was 2 days, or a month, or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle. Remaining thereon, the children of Israel stayed in their tents, and journeyed not. But when it was taken up, they journeyed. At the commandment of Yahweh, they rested in the tents. And at the commandment of Yahweh, they journeyed. They kept the charge of Yahweh at the commandment of Yahweh by the hand of Moses. What you're reading and what you heard is that the children of Israel went forth at the commandment of Yahweh every time they journeyed, which means when you read again in the book of Numbers, the 33rd chapter, when you read this, Numbers 33 and 1, where it says, "These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys, by the commandment of Yahweh. And these are their journeys according to their goings out." What you're reading about is every time Yahweh moved his cloud, is where in this cloud really was Yahweh dwelling in the midst of this cloud. That's why you read about Yahweh came down out of the midst of the cloud and spoke to Moses. This is where Yahweh and Moses spoke, in the midst of this covering of this cloud. Yahweh was there with the children of Israel in the wilderness. And when his cloud moved, the children of Israel moved. And when his cloud stayed, the children of Israel stayed. So these aren't some miscellaneous journeys you're reading about. You're reading about a wonder. Every one of these are a wonder, because every one of these is when Yahweh walked with the children of Israel, when Yahweh moved with the children of Israel, when Yahweh commanded the children of Israel to move, and when Yahweh commanded the children of Israel to stay. That's important. That's a miracle. That's a wonder. That's something that you don't read about in any other history book. That's something you don't read about in any other cultural book, where Yahweh marched with his people. Only in the book of the law of Moses. So these journeys were written down. And through these journeys, you will learn what happened in the wilderness. Case in point, one of the first events in the wilderness is detailed from one of these journeys. If you read further in Numbers, the 33rd chapter, it says, "And Moses wrote their goings out according to the journeys by the commandment of Yahweh. And these are their journeys according to their goings out. They departed from Ramses on the first month, on the 15th day of the month, on the next day after the Passover. The children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. For the Egyptians buried all their firstborn, which Yahweh had smitten among them. Upon their Elohim also Yahweh executed judgments. And the children of Israel removed from Ramses and pitched in Succoth. And they departed Succoth and pitched in Etam, which is in the edge of the wilderness." Now, what was this journey? What happened during this journey? Well, let me show you, because this is the beginning, is actually the first journey that was taken in the wilderness. And let me tell you how many journeys the children of Israel took in the wilderness. They took 40 journeys in the wilderness. And that's one of the major things about the book of Numbers, Bemidbar. You'll read about 12 different tests of 40. 12 tests of 40 in the wilderness. And the journeys was a test in itself, because there were 40 journeys in the wilderness, which means Yahweh used this 40 to test the children of Israel in the wilderness. And there's only 2 men that made it through every journey, that passed this test. That was Yehoshua and Caleb, or Joshua and Caleb. They passed the test of the 40 journeys. There's 40 journeys in the wilderness that you read about. The first one, we just read the geographical data, if you may. But here in Exodus, the 12th chapter, you'll actually see what went on. In Exodus, the 12th chapter, In verse 31, it reads, and he called for Moses, talking about Pharaoh. He called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve Yahweh as you have said. Also, take your flocks and your herds as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, we are all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs, being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses. And they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and clothing. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent to them such things as they required. And they plundered the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, besides children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not linger, neither had they prepared for themselves any provisions. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years. And it came to pass, at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day, it came to pass that all the host of Yahweh went forth out of the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto Yahweh, for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yahweh, to be observed by the children of Israel in their generations. Why? Because we left, we were free, and we left, and in our journey, our first journey out of Egypt was from Ramesses to Succoth. Well, the first journey you'll read about in the book of Numbers, the 33rd chapter, is from Ramesses to Succoth. That's the first journey. And there's 40 journeys in the wilderness, because Yahweh uses this 40 as a method of testing to see who will be deemed righteous and who will be condemned. Let me show you in the book of Deuteronomy, the 25th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 25th chapter. You're going to see this. And these are numbers. The book of Numbers is 12 tests of 40. Some of them are 40 days. Some of them are 40 years. But there's 12 tests of 40. And in Deuteronomy, the 25th chapter, the first verse reads, if there is a controversy between men, and they come to judgment, that the judges may judge them, then they shall justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. And it shall be, if the wicked man is worthy to be beaten, that the judge shall cause him to lie down and to be beaten before his face according to his fault, by a certain number. 40 stripes. How many? 40 stripes. 40 stripes he may give him, and not exceed least. If he should exceed and beat him above these with many stripes, then your brother should seem vile unto thee. So Yahweh uses this 40 as judgment. I'm going to see who will be justified and who will be condemned. Look in the book of Ezekiel, just to show you the importance of these tests of 40 in the book of Numbers, in Bemidbar, in the wilderness. And there's 40 journeys we took. And in each journey, there are events that happen. But some of these journeys had these various tests of 40. And in the book of Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, show you how Yahweh does things. In Ezekiel 20, verse 30, 1 says, "For when you offer your gifts, when you make your sons to pass through the fire and pollute yourselves with all your idols, even unto this day, and shall I be inquired of by you, O house of Israel? As I live, saith Yahweh, Yahweh, I will not be inquired of by you. And that which comes into your mind shall not be at all, that you say, we will be as the heathen, as the families of the countries, to serve wood and stone. As I live, saith Yahweh, surely with a mighty hand, and with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out will I rule over you." So he's letting you know, you could think you're going to be like the heathen all you want to. You could think you're going to be like the heathen all the live long day. And you're going to continue to elect wicked presidents to rule over you, to give you a stimulus check, and for you to be like the heathen. You could think that's what's going to happen, but it's not. Because as I live, saith Yahweh, surely with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out will I rule over you. And he said, Yahweh, I will bring you out from the people, which means you're not going to be in this place forever. I will bring you out from the people and will gather you out of the countries wherein you are scattered with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people. And there will I plead with you, judge you, face to face, like as I pleaded with thy fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So will I plead with you, saith Yahweh, and I will cause you to pass under the rod and will bring you into the bond of the covenant. And I will purge you from out among the rebels, and I will purge out from among you the rebels, and them that transgress against me. I will bring them forth out of the country wherein they dwelt, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am Yahweh. So he's letting you know, when I bring you out, you're going to be tested. You're going to be brought under the bond of the covenant. You're going to be purged. The rebels will be purged. And what do you think he did in the wilderness of Egypt? He purged the rebels, and he purged them through these tests of 40. Can you last 40 days? Can you last 40 years? And you're going to see these tests of 40 that he put upon you, because he's going to test you once again. So we need to remember them. So the first journey we read about was from Ramses to Sukkoth. But let's look at the first test of 40 that Yahweh put on us in the wilderness, that we reviewed and taught on a couple of days ago on the Sabbath day. And that is the manna. But before we go to the manna, let me show you how these journeys were tests in itself, 40 tests in itself. Look in the book of Exodus, the 15th chapter. In the 22nd verse, it reads, "So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto Yahweh. And Yahweh showed him a tree, which when he had cast it into the waters were made sweet. And there he made for them a statute and an ordinance. And there he proved them, which means he tested them. He tested them there, where at Marah, and said, if you will diligently listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon you, which I have brought upon the Egyptians. For I am Yahweh that heals you. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. And they camped there by the waters. Well, in one of the journeys you'll read about, it is from Pi-hahiroth to Marah. It's the fourth journey. And Marah to Elim, which we just read about. What happened at Marah, and when after they left Marah, they went to Elim and what they arrived upon. But he tested them at Marah, which is why it's one of the names in the book of Shemot, because it's a test that you need to remember, because there he made for them a statute. And it's a test of one of these journeys. It's one of the journeys of 40 in the wilderness, Marah. But let's look at the 12 different tests of 40, because though Marah is a test, it was of the journeys. But there are 12 tests of 40 that took place in the wilderness. And the first one is the manna. Now let's see where was the manna. In the book of Exodus, the 16th chapter. Let's go there, because you're going to see where the manna came to be for the children of Israel. Verse 1 of Exodus 16. And they took their journey from Elim. Didn't we just read Elim? Elim, so they're leaving Elim, which is a journey, which means the cloud that was above the tabernacle, namely the tent of meeting, that was above the tabernacle, it rose and went on its way, which means Yahweh moved. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing from the land of Egypt. Yeah. So in these journeys, in the 10th verse of Numbers 33, where the journeys are read, it says they went from Elim to the Red Sea, and then from the Red Sea to the wilderness of Sin. Verse 11. This is where we were going. And between the wilderness of Sin, between Elim and Sinai, you had the Red Sea and the wilderness of Sin. And in the wilderness of Sin, the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness, Bemidbar. And the children of Israel said unto them, would to Elohim we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Misraim, Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For thee have brought us forth into this wilderness, Bemidbar, to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then said Yahweh to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, And the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them. What's proof? I'm going to test them. But he's going to show you how long he's going to test you, whether they will walk in my law or not. Now, we know the manna came down from heaven. This is bread from heaven. This is angels' food. You'll read about that in Psalms 78. We did eat angels' food. Bread from heaven. This is something that was so nourishing that Caleb, who was 40 years old when he went into the wilderness, when he came out and when they was taking the land, he said, I'm 85 years old this day, and I'm just as strong as I was when I was a young man. And he called 40 a young man. So we're saying that this bread from heaven was nourishing because it's really all they ate. They didn't eat eggs for protein and kale for calcium. They didn't eat potatoes to put meat on their bones and beef to put meat on their bones. They had manna, which was angels' food, and an angel is above man. So we were being treated like angels. Yahweh's cloud was guiding us, and he was feeding us manna. We was walking angels, human angels, for 40 years. But look what was the length of the manna that he proved us with. He said he's going to prove us with the manna. How long was he proving us with the manna? In the book of Exodus, the 16th chapter, and we'll read at 32, says, and Moses said, this is the thing which Yahweh commands, fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread with which I have fed you with in the wilderness. Because your children need to know what I did when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, take a pot and put an omer full of manna therein and lay it up before Yahweh to be kept for your generations. As Yahweh commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years until they came to the land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came to the borders of the children of the land of Canaan. They ate manna 40 years. And what did Yahweh say he was going to do with this bread? Prove us, which means test. Why? Because with this test of 40, the righteous will be justified and the wicked will be condemned. And when that happens, Yahweh will purge the rebels out. You can't last with this 40, you're done. That's what he's doing with it. And there's 12 of them. Why? Because they're the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. Yahweh is letting you know this is about you, his relationship with you. But this manna was a test of 40. But there's another one. And let's look. It's called the Mount. And where did this occur? Well, of course, it occurred in the wilderness. But look in the book of Exodus, the 19th chapter. In the first verse, it says, in the 3rd month, when the children of Israel had gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. Now, we read earlier with the manna, they were between Elim and Sinai, which were journeys. So between Elim and Sinai, they came to the wilderness of Sin, where the manna was presented. But when they got to the wilderness of Sinai, which is another journey, it happens to be the 11th place that they encamped. And that you'll read in Numbers 33, verse 15. They went from Rephidim to Sinai, which you'll read in verse 2 of Exodus 19. It says, for they had departed from Rephidim and had come to the desert of Sinai and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Yisrael camped before the mount. What are we reading about? The mount. Where was it? In the wilderness of Sinai. One of the 40 journeys. Because every journey was a test. The journeys in itself was a test. And within these journeys, there are 12 tests in the wilderness. And you'll see this. So at the mount, what happened at the mount? Well, at the mount, I'll tell you what happened at the mount. Because we're doing a recap, so I'm not going to tarry long on each one. But in Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, I'll show you what happened at the mount. In Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, it says in verse 10, especially the day, in verse 9, only take heed to yourselves and keep thy soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen. Lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life, but teach them to thy sons and to thy sons' sons. Especially the day that thou stoodest before Yahweh, your Elohim in Horeb, when Yahweh said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. And you came near and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire unto the midst of heaven, with darkness, clouds, and thick darkness. And Yahweh spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. And you heard the voice of the words, but saw no likeness, only you heard a voice. And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded for you to perform, even 10 commandments. And he wrote them upon the table, 2 tables of stone. And Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might do them in the land where you go over to possess it. So at the mount, Yahweh presented the 10 commandments. He spoke to all the children of Israel, the 10 commandments, and then he wrote them on 2 tables of stone and gave them to Moses. This is what happened at the mount. And look in the book of Exodus, the 24th chapter, because it's still telling you what happened at the mount. Where at? In the wilderness of Sinai, at the mount. Where not only did you receive the 10 commandments from the mouth of Yahweh himself, but he also wrote them down on 2 tables of stone. And in Exodus 24, start reading at verse 15, it says, and Moses went up into the mount, and the cloud covered the mount, and the glory of Yahweh stayed upon Mount Sinai. And the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of Yahweh was like a devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and got him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. Another test of 40. Because during these 40 days and 40 nights, when Moses was getting the 2 tables of stone handed to him, written by the hand of Yahweh, the finger of Yahweh himself, learning the statutes and judgments that he should teach to the children of Israel, for 40 days and for 40 nights, what did the children of Israel do? They cut up. That's what they did. They were cutting up. Yes, if you look in the book of Exodus, the 32nd chapter, verse 1, it says, And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Arise, make us Elohim, which shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we know not what has become of him. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives and of your sons and of your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received them for their hands and fashioned it with an engraving tool. And he had made it a molten calf, and they said, These are your Elohim, O Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast unto Yahweh. And they rose up early on the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. And Yahweh said unto Moses, Go get you down, for your people which you have brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. Which means what? In 40 days, they corrupted themselves because Moses wasn't there, because the leader wasn't in their eyesight. As my mother used to tell me, out of sight, out of mind. And they cut up, they corrupted themselves, and all it took was 40 days. One of the 12 tests of 40 that happened in the wilderness, and these are during these journeys that happened in the wilderness. But what about what happened after that in the same location, nevertheless? Still, so that's why it's important to know the journeys, because these journeys are directly pointing to pivotal events of our Hebrew Israelite history, since it's Black History Month. We should know about these very important events and what happened as a result of this. Let me give you Moses's addition to what happened, because he broke it down, and I'll be able to move on a little quicker. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 9th chapter, Moses will tell us what happened at this same location. In Deuteronomy, the 9th chapter, it says in verse 7, Remember and forget not how you provoked Yahweh your Elohim to wrath in the wilderness, Bemidbar, from the day that you did depart out of the land of Egypt until you came to this place, and have been rebellious against Yahweh. Also in Horeb, where Mount Sinai is located, you provoked Yahweh to wrath, so that Yahweh was angry with you to have destroyed you. When I had gone up in the mount to receive the tables of stone, even the tables of the covenant which Yahweh made with you. Then I stayed in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. I neither did eat bread nor drink water. And Yahweh delivered to me 2 tables of stone written with the finger of Elohim. And on them was written according to all the words which Yahweh spoke with you in the mount, out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days and 40 nights that Yahweh gave me the 2 tables of stone, even the tables of the covenant. And Yahweh said unto me, Arise, get you down quickly from here, for your people which you have brought forth out of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have quickly turned aside out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten image. Furthermore, Yahweh spoke to me, saying, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Let me alone, that I may destroy them, and blot out their name from among under heaven. And I will make of you a nation mightier and greater than they. So I turned and came down from the mount, and the mount burned with fire. And the 2 tables of the covenant were in my 2 hands. And I looked, and behold, you had sinned against Yahweh, your Elohim, and had made a molten calf, and turned aside quickly out of the way which Yahweh had commanded you. And I took the 2 tables and cast them out of my 2 hands and broke them before your eyes. And I fell down before Yahweh as at the first 40 days and 40 nights. I did neither eat bread nor drink water because of all your sins which you have sinned in doing wickedly in the sight of Yahweh to provoke him to anger. Another test of 40 days and 40 nights. And this was called the atonement, because Moses attempted to atone for the sins of the people. He first tried to get killed, tried to get his life taken by Yahweh for the children of Israel. But Yahweh rejected that notion. That's why we don't serve JC, because Yahweh had the man who he called the meekest man in all his house, the most faithful man in all his house, attempted to lay his life down. He didn't say this burden was too heavy for me to bear. He didn't hide off in the cave somewhere and cry tears the size of blood drops and say, please take it from me. No, he said, if you will not forgive their sin, take my life. Yahweh said, any man that sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. So then Moses fell down for 40 days and for 40 nights. This is the atonement. And during that time, Yahweh told us to remove our ornaments so that he may see what will be done to us. And Moses atoned, which means he covered our sin. With his stripes were we healed. 40 days and 40 nights. That's the atonement. And that took place in Mount Sinai. One of the journeys, another test of 40, the 12 tests of 40. Some of them are 40 days, some of them are 40 years, but this here was a 40-day, 40-night experience. The Mount and the Atonement in Mount Sinai. One of the journeys that we took in the wilderness. And after this journey in the wilderness, Yahweh would have us tested again. And why? To purge out the rebels. And why? To justify the righteous and to condemn the wicked. This is how Yahweh will get the true gold, the true jewels, the precious stones through these tests of 40. And you're going to see, as we heard from our great Moray Naphtali, who went over these things this week, the search. There was a search that occurred. And just look here in the book of Numbers, the 13th chapter. Numbers, the 13th chapter, verse 1 reads, and Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, Send you men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give to the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shalt thou send a man, every one a ruler from among them. And Moses, by the commandment of Yahweh, sent them from the wilderness of Paran. All those men were heads of the children of Israel. So we got 12 men that went forth to search out the land of Israel. But this said in the wilderness of Paran. But where was this Paran? Paran was just a location in the larger area called Hazeroth. And you'll read about Hazeroth in Numbers, the 12th chapter, the 15th verse, where it says, and Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not until Miriam was brought forth again. And afterward the people departed from Hazeroth and pitched in the wilderness of Paran. So between Hazeroth and the next location, which was Rithmah, which you'll read in verse 18 of Numbers 33. There's a place called Paran. And in this place, this is where they left from to go search out the land. And you'll read about more of this in Numbers, the 13th chapter. Let's see. In verse 24. No, verse 25. It says, and they returned from searching the land after 40 days. Now, why 40 days? Because little did they know this was a test. Little did they know this was another proving of Yahweh. And we know that because he said 40 days. And we know that because he's shown us the law where he uses 40 to judge. He uses 40 to purge. He uses 40 to justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. He uses this 40 to prove. And they went to return from searching of the land after 40 days. And they went and came to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel to the wilderness of Paran and to Kadesh, and brought back word to them again to all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, we came to the land where you sent us, and surely it flows with milk and honey. And this is the fruit of it. So they showing the fruit of this land. So this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, they say, hold on now. The people are strong that dwell in the land. And the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of the Jordan. And so they weren't saying this like, oh, they just over there. They were saying, no, these great nations, Anak, Canaan, Hittites. Like, yeah, you know, as if somebody came to you and said, I went to the basketball court and it looks like a nice court. The hoops are good. But man, Jordan's on the court. LeBron's on the court. Kobe's on the court. Man, hold up. What you mean? If Yahweh told you to go and take this place, why are you getting excited about who's there? And Caleb stilled the people before Moshe and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. So Caleb, he was ready. He knew Yahweh had us. But the men that went up with him said, we are not able to go up. Now you see, you see the rebels. You see them now. Yahweh told you to go and take it, and these people are telling you, no, we're not able. And these are chief men. We're not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. What kind of effect you think that's going to have on people when the head of their tribe says, man, they stronger than us? This the head. This the one that should be the strongest. They stronger than us. They are failing the test. They're being proven to be a rebel. They're being proven that they ain't trusting in Yah. And they brought up an evil report out of the land which they had searched to the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eats up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come out of the giants. And we were in our sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So, of course, now this 40 shows you Caleb passed, Joshua passed, but these other men, they didn't. And what happened? The breach is what happened. And you read in the very next chapter, the very next verse, Numbers 14:1, and all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. So they created a tidal wave of dissent, a tidal wave of complaining. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron, and the whole congregation said up to them, would Elohim that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would Elohim that we had died in this wilderness, Bemidbar. See, this is what happened in the wilderness. And why has Yahweh brought us into this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return to Misraim, Egypt? And do you know what this word Egypt means? Bondage. My goodness. And they said to one another, let us make a captain and let us return to Egypt. And Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Yehoshua the son of Nun, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, which were of them that searched out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it, it is an exceedingly good land. If Yahweh delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it unto us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only rebel not. You see, they trying to tell them, don't rebel. Rebel not. Only rebel not against Yahweh. Neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense has departed from them, and Yahweh is with us. Fear them not. But all the congregation said, stone them with stones. And the glory of Yahweh appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel. And Yahweh said unto Moses, how long will this people provoke me? And how long will it be before they believe me, for all the signs which I have shown among them? So now Yahweh was done. Why? Because they broke Yahweh's covenant. And let me get to the part where he lets you know about this. Same book of Numbers, the 14th chapter. We're going to read verse 26. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say to them, as truly as I live, saith Yahweh, as you have spoken in my ears, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Doubtless you shall not come into the land concerning which I swore to make you dwell therein, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Yehoshua, the son of Nun. But your little ones, which you have said should be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms until your carcasses are wasted in the wilderness. After the numbers of days in which you search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall you bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and you shall know my breach of promise. I, Yahweh, have said, I will surely do it to all this evil congregation that are gathered together against me in this wilderness. They shall be consumed, and there they shall die. And the men which Moses sent to search the land, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land, even those men that did bring up an evil report upon the land, died by the plague before Yahweh. So you see, this 40 days of searching was a test. And because they failed it, they received 40 years in the wilderness, in which they will be tested for 40 years. Through 40 journeys, 12 tests of 40 in the wilderness. And let me show you what Yahweh said in the book of Deuteronomy, and then we'll close. Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, the 3rd verse reads, the first verse reads, in all the commandments which I command you this day shall you observe to do, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which Yahweh swore unto your fathers. You shall remember all the way which Yahweh your Elohim led you these 40 years in the wilderness, Bemidbar, to humble you and to prove. What's prove? To test. To humble you and to prove you. And what was this for? To know what was in your heart, whether you would keep the commandments, his commandments, or be a rebel or not. That's what he's saying. Because in Ezekiel 20, he said, I'm going to purge out from among you the rebels. Joshua and Caleb said, don't rebel against him. And he kept us in this wilderness 40 years to see what was in our heart, if we would keep the commandments or not. And he humbled you to hunger and he humbled you and suffered thee to hunger and fed you with manna, which was a test, which you knew not, neither did your fathers know, that he might make you to know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh does man live. Hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous. Yah is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. We just did a recap in the wilderness so far of the first 6 points brought forth: the manna, the mount, the atonement, the search, the breach, and the journeys. And we see that these journeys span everything that happened in the wilderness. So we got to know these journeys. You got to teach them to your children. This is Black history. Hallelujah. And until tomorrow on our Shabbat day, Yahweh loves you very much. And so do I here at the house of Israel. Praise the mighty Yah. Shalom.
Yahweh is a great king. Yahweh is a great above all. Above all. He is above all. Yahweh is Elohim. Yahweh is above all. He is above all.
is king of the rap game. I thought I was the Tupac of my time, but my spirit was on a different state of mind. Yah name was running through my blood. I couldn't shake the vibes, all I saw was the Most High. Broke my wrists and I couldn't write, wasn't what I needed. I had the book of Yah and began to read it. How amazed was I when I saw the true history in the heathen's deeds. I asked Yah, what is my mission? His word came to me, said lift him up above all, exalt his name above all, magnify his word above all, cause his word the truth above all. So I sit on Zion's walls and proclaim Yah to the world, cause he reign above all.
Yahweh is a great king. Above all. Above all. Yahweh is Elohim. Above all. Above all.
Yo, Yahweh is my king above all. To him will I sing above all. To Yah be the glory above all. Yah told my story above all. Yah chose Israel above all. David is his firstborn above all. JC was never above all. Past is only about that money above all. This year Yah held me up above all. Blessings overflow my cup above all. Yah's spirit got my steps above